We are going to talk all about mortgages today, and I am so excited to bring my friend Aaron Hartley on. He is a mortgage professional from Premier Mortgage Center, and we're going to talk all about mortgages. And that word initially was quite scary to me before I ever knew anything about a mortgage, and that's why I have brought Aaron on. He's going to break down all about mortgages, how to get one, what you need to know about, and any tips that are going to be helpful for you to know to plan ahead. So Aaron, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much for having me.
Discussing mortgages with
Yes,
today.
It's my pleasure.
So can you tell us what is a mortgage?
So in its simplest form, a mortgage is a loan you take out with a financial institution to pay off the remainder of your home after you put a down payment down. So it's a legal contract between you and a lender.
It's a bank, and it could also be a private lender.
Yes, in Canada we have our bank lenders, and then there's non-bank lenders. There's several of those across Canada. Many have been in business for decades. So we work with a variety of different lenders and financial institutions to meet the client's goals and make sure we can secure financing for them.
Okay, and I'm assuming they all have their own separate rates and conditions and different variations?
That's right, yeah. So each lender has a set of parameters that they have to kind of operate in based on federal regulations and laws. Their requirements can vary a bit, so that's part of a mortgage broker's job, is to know, what each institution offers as far as their programs, and place the client with the lender or institution that's best suited to their needs.
Okay, and when you would be doing your process, would you be going to different lenders to see what they can offer, or would it be one that you would think would be specific? Or
we get weekly updates from a lot of our banks and financial institution partners. In our position, we're up to date on the rates and the different policies at each lender. Part of our job is to know all those things prior to the client coming to us, and then normally you know where to place it first, and if it doesn't work out with that lender, there's a couple more options available to you, but more often than not you kind of have in your head, all right, this is going to be a good fit for this bank or lender.
Thanks for explaining that.
Yes, no problem.
What if somebody was thinking about getting a mortgage, what would be some of the things that they should be doing before they speak to somebody like you?
For sure. So one of the biggest things is obviously having a down payment ready. That's the first step for most people, is saving up for a down payment. And in Nova Scotia, the minimum down payment you can make is 5% of the purchase price of a home.
So 5% of the purchase price. So if the home was $500,000, that would be $25,000?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So actually, that brings me to another point. So it's 5% on the first $500,000, and then anything above that in a purchase price, it's a minimum of 10%. So that is important to know as well. But generally, if you're saving up, if you're looking for a starter home, most people are looking a little bit under 500, but it is creeping up here now. The prices keep going up, so you have to have that 5% down. Anything under 20% down for down payment is subject to mortgage default insurance. So that is basically something that protects the lender in the event that you default on the loan. So if someone stopped paying their mortgage, this mortgage insurance is what protects the lender. So it's calculated as a percentage of the loan, but if you go over 20% down payment, you don't have to pay that fee.
So a fixed rate, that means that it's locked in. You can't, the rate is what the rate is for a certain amount of time.
Right, so you are given that rate, and okay, this is going to be my monthly payment for the duration of the term of the loan. So if you were on a 5-year term and you have 5.09%, you know exactly what your monthly payment's going to be for the next 5 years. And then when your mortgage is up for renewal, then you can negotiate a new rate based on the market at that time.
Okay. But negotiating is at the end of the day, it's the bank that makes the decision, or is there much negotiation that goes on?
Myself as well, the broker will reach out to you when you're coming up for renewal, kind of discuss where things are at with you, if you are looking to tap into any equity in the home, looking to see what the goal is of the client, and then you can kind of work out a plan and take that to the lender, and the lender will give you a renewal quote. Depending on what that quote is, you can choose to either shop around for other options at different lenders, or you can agree to another term with your current lender. But usually the path of least resistance is to keep your loan where it is. So usually with your broker and the lender, you can usually work out something that's beneficial for both of you and keep it where it is more often than not.
And by the way, you are able to service all over Nova Scotia, is that right?
Correct, yes.
And are you able to also help people from out of province? So say if I have friends in BC and they aren't able to get a mortgage where they are, or purchase a home where they are because they're in the millions.
Right.
But let's say they have some cash and they're able to come to Nova Scotia and purchase. Are you able to help them long distance?
Absolutely, yes. So part of COVID in our industry was that we couldn't meet face to face oftentimes, so electronic signatures are now acceptable to banks and lenders, and to meet all the legal requirements involved in the mortgage process. So everything can be done virtually at this point. So it is easier for people trying to come from out of province now than it has ever been, and as long as they're setting up themselves with employment here and have some sort of employment contract and are intending to be a resident of Nova Scotia, it's quite an easy process.
I saw that just the other day you had a client I sent you and you were able to just go bam, 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 and it seems like they got pre-approved quite fairly soon. The process can be pretty much as quick as you want it to be. So on my end, there's documents that I require to get the process going, and I can get the application and the pre-approval pretty much done as quickly as you can give me the documents. So I work at the speed at which the client needs and help them to get to that point where they have a budget in mind and they can start shopping with a real estate agent and looking for properties. Amazing. Thank you. My clients are very happy with that. So
glad to hear.
You were very efficient and very fast, so thanks for that. And can you tell me, if somebody's never done this before, what they may, I also heard if you want to get a mortgage, you should try to have a certain amount of money in your account secure for a certain amount of months even before you actually do the process. Is that true?
Yes and no. So what we require is a 90-day account history, and that's something that a mortgage broker and a lender will review. So the 90-day account history is to basically show where the funds are coming from for a down payment.
Right.
The money doesn't have to be in there for 90 days. We just want to see that basically where the money's originating. And you can get gifted funds, but it has to be from a direct family member, and they have to sign a gift letter. It becomes a legal document stating that the funds don't need to be repaid. But the intention of the 90-day account history is just to show that where you've acquired the down payment from.
Thanks. So if you want to buy a fancy car or something, hold off. Hold off till you got the go-ahead with the banks and you have some security.
So once you're pre-approved, it is important to maintain your current financial situation until after the closing process, because let's say you came and got pre-approved, it's based on your current financial situation. So you wouldn't want to be changing employers or purchasing a new vehicle after you're pre-approved, because it can really halt the process once everything's getting finalized with the lender in the closing process. So we always advise people, don't make big purchases or change employers while you're in that pre-approval zone.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
What else should they know? Like, what is the whole, I don't know how many steps it is, but what information would you need to know from your client?
So the first part of the process when you go to a mortgage broker for pre-approval, it's pretty simple 2-page application that gets filled out, and then anyone that's going to be going on the mortgage would fill out their personal information. Part of that process is verifying employment, your assets and liabilities, your monthly.
And I think employment, you have to be there for a certain amount of time. You can't just be a new employee.
We basically just need an employment letter and your first 2 pay stubs. So with employment, you can start out a new position and still get approved for a loan. You just have to have a letter of employment stating your full-time, your salary, and that is enough for most banks and lenders to approve for a mortgage. If you are self-employed, however, you need 2 years at your current position in self-employment to be eligible for a mortgage loan in most circumstances.
Okay.
Where self-employment, they look at 2 years of income tax filing to kind of get a gauge on what you're bringing in annually. It's very tough to secure a loan if you're newly self-employed.
Yeah.
In the initial application process, we also collect your credit bureau just to verify. There's minimum credit score bureau requirements for many lenders, so this is another very important thing to keep on top of, like where you sit with your credit score. Credit Karma is a free and very useful tool to kind of track that and know where you're sitting. There's an application you can put on your phone, and it's a free useful tool where you can review. Oftentimes people can have errors or omissions on their credit bureau, and you don't want to wait until you go looking for a loan to get that stuff sort of corrected. It's important to know where you sit with your credit prior to getting.
So there can be mistakes on your credit that can...
Well, there can be things that maybe you've paid off already and it's still sitting there affecting your score. It's just important to have it and review it and make sure it's correct before you come to the pre-approval process, so that there's no hiccups that could delay things.
Sure.
Oftentimes, there's a minimum credit score requirement at most lenders. It's one of the big parts of getting approved for a loan is your credit worthiness.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah. So Credit Karma, very useful tool.
So what would be a good score for credit, and what would be a bad score?
Generally, most lenders want to see one of the applicants at least have a score around 680 or above. Okay. Some other lenders...
So just one of the applicants. If there's 2, one person has a lower score, it might help.
Yeah, it can still work. We just have to know, again, where to place the deal with different lenders that are okay with different numbers. But if I had to give a general answer, it's usually one person has to be in that range or above. And other lenders will offer you better rates depending on your credit score. Like, there'll be a certain fixed rate, and it's only eligible for people that have a minimum beacon score of, say, 730 and above. That's not every lender, but there are definitely benefits to having your score 700 and above in most circumstances. It's certainly going to help out the situation for you to secure financing.
Okay. Would having more credit cards help, or is it just good to have just one credit card
So
that's paid off as much as you can? Or?
you're normally going to want to have a minimum of 2 credit lines with major financial institutions.
Okay.
So, with your bank, and then if you have an auto loan as well, typically lenders are going to want to see a couple different forms of credit being used and repaid on a regular basis, just to verify your creditworthiness. But it is useful to have multiple lines of credit that are being used and paid off than less.
Okay, so let's play pretend, and
Okay.
I wanted to do a mortgage, and I wanted to call you up, and I want to get a house. What I call you, do I have to pay for an appointment to have an appointment with you?
So good question. So there's no fee to work with the mortgage broker. We are only paid by the lender if you secure financing. So there's never a fee involved in getting pre-approved, which is nice. Like I said earlier, there's a 2-page document you fill out. Based on that information, it allows me to understand what documents I'm going to need to start asking for from you. Things like T4s, that employment letter, pay stubs, running the credit check. I would be basically determining your monthly income and liabilities, using those numbers to get us to a point where we know the ratios are going to work in line with the bank to get you to your maximum purchasing price, and then we pre-approve based on kind of what those numbers look like. But yeah, there's no fee to work with a mortgage broker, and sometimes people often don't understand that part of the process, like how do we get paid, but it's always through the lender that we take the loan to.
Right, as it should be.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's wonderful to know that somebody could come to you without knowing too much, but they're going to walk away having a lot more information than they started with, and probably feel a lot more clear on the whole process.
For sure.
And the more that you know and understand, the less scary this gets. And
another big point too that I want people to understand about mortgage brokers is that we don't have any ties to any particular bank or lender. I have no reason to bring it to one bank over another. So ultimately, like if you go into your bank, they have one product they can offer you. They can offer you their fixed rate or their variable rate, but that's all they have access to. Where a mortgage broker, we have access to dozens of banks and lenders and different options, and we can work with the client to get them in the best situation possible for them to meet their goals.
I really like that. I've often felt if I do go to the bank, I know very much that every decision I'm getting offered is to benefit them.
Sure, yeah.
I like the fact that you would be working for the client and finding the client the best deal suitable to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so somebody comes into you, they want to find out if they want to do a mortgage, they bring their T4, they do the application.
Yeah.
You find out the information, and then from there you have a couple options. Is it usually a few options that you can give them?
So what we do first after collecting all that information and verifying it is give a pre-approval amount.
Okay.
So we will give a formal email or letter stating you're pre-approved for this purchase price, and that'll allow them to start shopping for a home. If they already have a home in mind, we can pre-approve for that amount if they are eligible for it, and then it's very simple. But if they haven't started shopping yet, we give them a budget amount to start looking, pre-approve them for a certain amount, and where we're in an environment with constantly changing rates right now, it can work in your favor to get that pre-approval before you start shopping, because right now we've seen interest rates go up significantly in the last couple of months. We can hold a rate for you for 120 days while you're shopping.
That's nice.
And then you have access to what potentially could be a much lower rate than would be available when you do find your home that you're looking to purchase. Where we try to steer people right now is to shorter term fixed rates. Something in the 2 to 4 year range would be ideal. Depending on someone's situation though, they may want to choose a 5-year rate. If it's, right now the 5-year rates are lower percentages than the 3 and 4, but definitely fixed rate 2 to 4 years is what we're recommending to people right now.
Let's say you have some clients, you find out what they're pre-approved for, they can now go shopping with a real estate agent, they find the house of their dreams, they want to put an offer in.
Yeah.
What are the next steps?
Yeah, so the next steps, there's going to be paperwork involved again, realtor paperwork going back and forth, and collected to give to the lenders. An important part that I should mention that often is unknown in the process is the closing costs. So in Nova Scotia, we generally tell people to budget for 2.5% to 3% of the purchase price of the home for the closing cost fees.
You got that, guys. 2.5% to 3% the purchase of the home should be put aside for closing costs. Very good to know because you're going to need some saved up cash to close up the deal. So you'll want to have that in advance.
Yeah, that percentage is made up of, there's just a blanket 1.5% land transfer tax in Nova Scotia. So that's up to the client to pay. You're going to have legal fees as well, appraisal costs. But yeah, that generally it's 2.5% to 3% of the purchase price that you should budget for on top of your down payment.
Quite a bit of money.
I know when I was purchasing my first home, this was prior to me being a mortgage broker, and it kind of caught me off guard because I always thought, I'll have my down payment and then that's good.
Of course,
but
you're focusing on the big down payment, but there's all these other people that need to get paid to be doing the transaction.
That's right. So that's something I always like to tell clients in the beginning, so that it doesn't catch them by surprise in the closing process. And it is important information to know.
So to summarize this all, closing steps, we've got to save some money. You have to have some paperwork involved. What else do we need to know in order to finalize the process?
After you're pre-approved, pretty much the daily interaction with the broker kind of stops there, and then you're working primarily with someone like yourself on the realty side. And then I'm making sure that the closing process all comes together, and after all the documents are signed, the mortgage commitment and everything, that's all passed on to your lawyer. So you're going to want to have a lawyer. That's usually what a broker will come in and ask, for the solicitor's information. That's given to the bank or lender, and then the bank and lender is giving paperwork directly to your lawyer for you to go in when you collect the keys and do the closing process. All of that information is there for you to sign. Preparation, making sure you have access to documents you're going to need, tax documents, employment letters, pay stubs. Gathering that beforehand can be useful, or making sure that it's not going to be a problem for you to obtain. Because like I said earlier, as quickly as you can get me those documents, I can get your pre-approval out, and then you can get shopping for a home. So
Wonderful.
Yeah, so a little bit of planning and preparation, and it's very crucial to the process. I always say there's no question too big or small, because if we're all on the same page, the process is so much smoother.
I appreciate your approach and how you handle all of it. So thank you for.
Awesome, you're welcome.
Thank you for teaching us all about mortgages.
It's my pleasure.
Erin is with Premier Mortgages. So if somebody wanted to make an appointment with you, how would they find you?
I'm always available. I don't work for a bank, like I said earlier, so I don't work at bank hours either. I'm available evenings, weekends, whenever.
Real estate hours.
Yeah, real estate hours you're familiar with, absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm always open for a phone call and to help get the process started.
Thank you.
Yep.
So if any of you guys have any questions further than this, please contact him. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned something today. If you have any further questions, here are my contacts, and feel free to reach out anytime.